My name is Jennifer Christie. I'm a wife and a mother of 5, and I'm sharing my story of my youngest beautiful son. I think that things were pretty much status quo. You would consider us an average family. We had 4 kids. Felt like I was kind of at the top of my game as an interpreter. I was taking on more work and traveling. I had interpreted a few cruises, which was really cool, I thought, and I was getting to kind of see the world a little bit there, and taking some out-of-town work, and still, for the most part, being able to be home, in time to meet the school bus when my kids got home. So it was sort of the best of both worlds. In January of 2014, I took a two-week assignment out of town. And the last day that I was there, I finished up my job and I went back to the hotel, and it was snowy. I wasn't really paying attention that day. I made it to my room and opened the door and dropped all my stuff inside and turned around to close the door, and there was a man in the doorway. And I remember just kind of being startled, just surprised to see someone there, but I wasn't scared at first. He seemed very young, college age maybe, like a couple of years older than my oldest. There was nothing that looked wrong. There was nothing that would make you look at him and think that he was capable of evil. It's not something that's recognizable. And before I could even process what someone might have been doing in my doorway, he hit me in the head, a closed fist, and things went kind of fuzzy. And he dragged me back into the room and he raped me. I've been asked a lot how long were you in the room, and I have no idea, minutes, hours, days. I broke a couple of ribs and some fingers trying to fight until I recognized that fighting was making it worse, and disappeared somewhere inside myself. So my memories are blotchy. Thankfully, there are things that happened to me that came out in the rape kit that I have no memory of, which I'm very grateful for. I woke up hearing someone scream. I was in a stairwell outside of the hotel. I was wearing a broken bra, and that's it. And it was below freezing temperatures, which actually probably saved my life because I had a brain bleed from the head injury. All during the rape kit, which is a several-hour process, I thought about what I could have done differently. I thought about how this was going to change me. I thought about how different the world seemed. I wondered if people could look at me from that point on and see that I was damaged or different. They would find glass embedded in my colon. I was violated with what appeared to have been a beer bottle that broke, and that would require 2 surgeries, including a complete bowel resection, just to make my body functional again. And I've been told not to share that because that's disturbing. And it's disturbing to me too. But I think that's important. I think it's important to share because rape is ugly and it shouldn't be sugar-coated. I was told by the policemen who were there at the time to not expect justice. I don't know, that's not exactly the word that the man used, but he said, he said, rape cases are a dime a dozen. That was the quote that stuck in my head. Rape cases are a dime a dozen. And I think that in his own way, he was trying to be kind. In his own way, he was trying to tell me to find a way to piece it together and move on. Because this is not something that would likely be pursued very heavily. Life after the assault was very challenging. I did not bounce back quickly. I was not able to resume normal life the way it had been. I was having panic attacks. I felt like I was being watched everywhere. I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping. There was one time Jeff had come up to me in the kitchen and put his arms around me just in a hug. He'd done it a million times before. And I just folded in half and I clenched my fists and I screamed. It just took me back there. And I ran to the bathroom and I slammed the door, and I could hear my little boys, saying, "What happened to Mom? What's wrong?" And my husband going, "It's okay, it's all right." I scared her, that's all. I just scared her. And that's sort of the way things were. I was very jumpy, and I wasn't okay. I thought about hurting myself a lot. I didn't know how I was going to get through the rest of my life. I had an assignment at a church. I don't remember exactly what it was, but there was lots of music, which I loved to do. I loved to assign music, and it was a beautiful experience, and people were coming up to me afterwards, and we were really blessed by that, and I was on such a high. And I walked out into the parking lot, and it was dark, and I just felt like I was being watched. I just felt like this man was going to find me and attack me, and I couldn't catch my breath. I couldn't breathe. And the next thing I know, I'm running through the parking lot. I'm running through the trees, and I've got my phone, and I'm talking to Jeff, and I'm breathless. And I just, "You have to come get me. Something's going to happen." And he's like, "It's okay. Breathe. I'm on my way. I'm on my way." And people were like pulling over. I'm like running through the woods and running through the streets, and people are pulling over. "And do you need us to call the police?" And I was just pushing people away with my hands, and I remember thinking, I'm losing my mind. Like, this is it. This is where it all happens, where I just break, like at the beginning of the end. And I made it back to the church, and I walk inside, and I'm this crumpled mess. And one of the pastors comes over to me, and I just said, "I'm so sorry. I was raped about a week ago, and I think I'm having a panic attack. I might be losing my mind." And I was just so embraced, and these people just sat with me and just held my hand and waited until Jeff came to pick me up. And one of the women who was there was actually knew of me because she worked in the organization that had sent someone to go out of town to be there for me when I had the rape kit done. So it was kind of an interesting twist, but I was not healing. I was not letting God heal me. I was angry, and I was second guessing myself, like many rape victims do, and why didn't I fight harder, and why didn't I do this, and what could I have done, and all the questions the police had asked me. Did I know him? Did I smile? Did I flirt? All these things were going in my head, and I didn't know. And it was not a good time. It was not a good time. Five weeks after the rape, I was scheduled to interpret on a cruise, and this had been in the works for months, so it wasn't something that I could just easily back out of. There were a team of 4 interpreters, there was a huge group of deaf people, and I was specially requested, and I should have pulled out. I felt like at the time the more professional thing to do would be just to suck it up and do my job, and that was the wrong decision. But that's what I did. This shattered panic attack mess, I went on this cruise. Day 2, I'm sick, dysentery. I wasn't getting better. The one head doctor, she said, "Is there a chance you could be pregnant?" And I just say, "Okay, look, this is probably not, I'm almost sure I'm not, but I was raped, last month, and you should probably just go ahead and test me." And the question of the morning after pill has come up. In my file, it says that it was given. I would not have taken it, only because at the time, now I definitely wouldn't have. Then I didn't know. I just wasn't knowledgeable enough. And if I'm not knowledgeable enough, if there was a question of it being something akin to an abortion pill, I just wouldn't have been comfortable taking it. So I don't know for sure whether or not it was administered, but I was on other meds. I have rheumatoid arthritis, and I was on other meds that can sometimes lessen the efficacy of that. So there's my answer. That's often brought up. So why wasn't she given the morning after pill? I don't know. If I was, I wouldn't have taken it. So back to the ship. She gives me the pregnancy test, and this poor young doctor who is not at all what she had signed up for. She looks at it and she goes, "No, it's negative." And then she stops and she does one of these. And I was like, "What?" Like I've been pregnant quite a few times. What? She said, "It's probably nothing." And I was like, "Let me see the test." And there was a second line, and I said, "That's positive." And she goes, "Maybe." And I said, "Not maybe." And she goes, "We'll test again." Because every pregnant woman has said that. "I'll test again because maybe I'll get a different result then." And we test again, and there's that second blue line. And I said, "That's positive." And I just stare at it. I feel like the world would be telling me, "You're pregnant from something horrible. You should be angry and disgusted." And I felt this rush of fierce protectiveness over this baby. And I remember just putting my hands on my stomach and saying, like, I have to tell my husband. I have to tell my husband. And she's like, "Well, you're in a lot of pain. We're gonna take you to the doctor, and we're gonna make sure that everything's okay, that there's not an intestinal blockage, that it's not a tubal." Or, and I said, "Okay, well, I'll wait and hold off on telling Jeff until we know anything." And we made a stop in Cartagena, Colombia, and I was taken to this looked like a little garage, this little hospital, in this beautiful, colorful little city. And I had a translator with me, who I did not need, because as soon as they put that ultrasound in, there was a little pea, and I've seen those little peas before, and that little pea was my son. And I smiled at him. And that was Valentine's Day, 2014. And I went back to the ship and called Jeff, and I said, "Are you sitting down?" And he knew that I was sick because we had been emailing, but I hadn't called him. It's very pricey. And he said, "What's wrong?" And I said, I'm pregnant." And there was just a hair of a pause, just a split second. And he said, "Okay." I said, "Okay." "What do you mean, okay? How is this okay?" Like, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, my parents are going to freak. What are your parents going to say? What do we tell the kids? Like, my mind is going just all over the place. I'm like, "How are you calm?" And he said, "Honey, this is something beautiful." He said, "This is a gift." He said, "This is something wonderful that's come out of something so painful for us. We love babies." And I said, "Yeah, we love babies." And he said, "This is going to be awesome." I said, "Okay." He said, "We can do this. We can do this, Jay. We can do this." I said, "Yeah, we can do this." And for the rest of the week, I listened to a lot of really kind-hearted nurses and doctors tell me, you're not thinking clearly. When you get home, it's really early. They'll just give you a pill and it'll all be over. And you can move on with your life. You can take a pill, you can do a quick little procedure, and you can forget, and it'll just be done. And this one beautiful little nurse, she just kept saying, "This poor little victim, this baby, this poor little victim." And I thought, what an interesting perspective, that in her world, this poor little victim needs to be eradicated. And from my perspective, this poor little victim needs to be protected. The last day before I left, I asked to talk to everybody, and we'd grown pretty close. And I said, "Guys, if you ever wonder what happened to me, if you ever think about me again, just know that my husband and I had a beautiful baby in the fall of 2014. And oh my gosh, you could have heard a pin drop. The one doctor, the one who gave me the pregnancy test, she was from somewhere in the Ukraine and wasn't cold, but she'd been very clinical and very professional. And she had tears in her eyes. And she just put her hand on my arm and she turned and she walked away. And this other doctor just said, "Did you ever think you could be so strong?" And I said, I don't really look at it as strength. I said, I'm just a woman and I'm having a baby. And that was how I found out. People will say that, you guys made such a brave choice, you made such a bold choice, but we didn't make a choice. The question of abortion was never raised. It never came off our lips. It just wasn't something that was even in our universe as something to consider. It's like saying you got a cut. Did you cut off your legs? No. Why would we even think? Our minds didn't go there. However, there were a lot of significant people in our life who were not thrilled with our decision, thinking, what kind of trauma is this going to do? Are you going to be reliving the rape with every kick, with every move in the womb? And you'll never be able to forget. He'll be a constant reminder you'll never be able to forget. And I had Christian friends of mine saying, "Jen, this is why we have abortion. This is the reason that it's okay." The pregnancy was very difficult, very complicated. I spent a lot of time in the hospital. I spent a lot of time in bed. The last several months I was in bed. And rather than feel resentful at all the changes in my life, I think the fact that we were so close to losing him so many times. I think from 24 weeks on, every time I went to the doctor, I pretty much went to the hospital. They're like, "All right, we got to put you on a monitor. You may have to deliver." And that's terrifying because I know what babies look like at 24, 25, 26, 27 weeks. And it's a long, hard road. And it's not one that you want for your child. And with each week that passed, I think my connection with him grew stronger, and my fierce mama bear love kind of grew more intense. And in the midst of all this chaos, there was always the light. There was always the baby was coming. And while we were trying to work through what I was trying to work through the rape as a woman, and why Jeff and I were working through what it meant for us as a married couple, at the same time we had this wonderful thing happening. That even though it was difficult and even though it was complicated, at the end of it all, there was going to be this baby, this wonderful baby, who we were all so excited and also so looking forward to meeting. And it felt very, I've said this before, it felt very, very healing, having that kind of love, hearing so often that, you're never going to be able to forget, you're never going to be able to forget. And no, I'm not, regardless of what I did from the moment I found out that I was pregnant. Forgetting is never on the table. That doesn't happen. It's not that kind of world. But as far as him being a reminder, he absolutely is every day. But I don't look at his sweet little face and see the face of the man who assaulted me. I don't flash back to that day. He is a reminder that I'm a survivor, and he's a reminder that God is still on the throne, and that good still wins out over evil. And he's a reminder that on my darkest day, that someone still thought that I was worthy of saving. I don't know why things happen. We can't see the whole grand scheme of everything. We don't get to know the whole picture. We see a piece of the puzzle. In our finite minds, we can't comprehend the infinite, and I'm okay with that. Because I have this reminder of the fact that what the enemy tried to use to kill me, to bring me down, to end me in every sense of the word, God used to bring light and joy and peace to my life, and healing to my family and to my husband and I, and now to I don't even know who, to someone watching who may need to hear it. Yes, he's been healing in every possible sense of the word. And he still is on my difficult days, on the days when I've had a lot of seizures, when I'm sick, when I'm in pain, when I'm dealing with flashbacks, things that still happen as part of my world. They just happen. I have him. And it's really hard to have a bad day when you've got someone wrapping their arms around you, telling you that they love you, or petting your hair, or meowing at you because their sister taught them to be a cat. He's just joy and light and happiness and all the good that God is. And that's what I see when I look at him. People say a lot that, well, that's great, she made her choice, and isn't all about choice. And my story is not one about choice. I'm not telling my story to say, look, this is the choice that I made. I'm talking to emphasize the humanity of my son. It's not just a choice. It's not just a decision. It's life-changing for more than your life. A lot of people who claim to be pro-life but make exceptions for. If you're pro-life, you need to be pro-life and pro-all life. Because what you're saying when you're saying I'm pro-life except for in cases of rape, then you're saying that my son is somehow less deserving, less worthy, less important. That there is something intrinsically wrong with him because of how he came to be. I was reading under, someone else's article. I get tagged in these things all the time, and someone who was calling themselves pro-life was just saying it's just compassion. It's just compassion to say except for in cases of rape, because think about the woman. Why isn't anyone thinking about the woman? And so I responded, and I wanted to read that. He said, think about it from the woman's point of view. And I said, okay, yes, let's think about it from the woman's point of view. The day after she's raped, she's shocked to find out the sun still rises because everything in her world has changed. She feels different, wrong, inexplicably ashamed. She's certain that strangers can look at her and know that she is damaged. She walks around thinking, I'm a woman who has been raped, and knows her life has now been split in half. Before she became a statistic, after. In the silence, she hears things he said to her, things she knows she'll never repeat. When she closes her eyes, she sees him looming over her. She can't eat. The taste of her own blood lingers on her tongue. The dank earthiness of the ground as he held her head down. She speaks with other survivors, with friends, with her lover who's trying desperately to comfort her, but she is terribly, terribly alone. When a faint second line blossoms on the pregnancy test, for a moment she feels as though the wind is knocked out of her. Instinctively her hands drift to her flat belly as she tries to slow her breath. She knows what she should feel. Resentment, anger, maybe. But somehow, for the first time since crossing over into the after, she doesn't feel so adrift. Somehow, for the first time since crossing over into the after, she feels a reason to grow on. A ferocious need to safeguard this delicate new life. She might not have been able to protect herself, but she can protect her baby. Her baby. Deep breath. It's okay, she whispers to nobody and everybody. I'm going to take care of you. But they take care of each other. And in little arms and big eyes and the purest of all love, she begins to heal. So when people tell you to think about the woman, I would ask that you remember my story and the story of so many others. Because we are those women. So many people say, think about the woman, and it's a false compassion. Because they're using our story of the 1% to justify the slaughtering of the 99. And it's not true. The lies that they tell you are not true. The lies that you can heal, that you can move on, that everything will be better if you just get rid of your baby. Healing is found in that complete, innocent love. Healing is found in being able to save someone when you couldn't save yourself. There was a quote, a beautiful comment from someone once, where they said, the world was telling us that we shouldn't love you, but in all these voices, we loved you louder. And I tell him that when I tuck him in. I said, we loved you louder. So when he has those doubts, when he finds out, he'll know that we loved him louder than all the negative voices and all the voices that told us that he shouldn't be here. But there's so much more love, and that's so much more powerful, because Christ is so much more powerful than anything evil. So much more powerful. And the messages of love and forgiveness and redemption and healing so permeate our whole life in ways that we never could have imagined. So I just pray that when we do know, if he ever asks, like, why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell me before? And we can just say, it didn't matter. It didn't matter to us. You're ours. And it's just a little piece. It's a little piece of your story. It's a little piece of how you came to be, but it's not who you are. Who you are is ours and his, and wonderful. And we would not be the people that we are without you.